Hello my friends and welcome. My name is Jimmy Aleman Jr. I hope you are all finding success with your projects, and congratulations to each of you for getting to this point, and for some of you after this project, graduation. Well done. This presentation will attempt to facilitate some insight into a wonderful technology called blockchain. I developed a significant interest in this emerging technology over the course of this graduate program, and with the help of my fellow classmates, was able to cover the topic in previous assignments. So without further delay, let's begin. So why blockchain? As I mentioned, I covered the topic for reasons of an assignment for previous courses. Reading just one or two articles for research motivated me to this point. For me, the technology represents promising potential for change on a global scale. Also, unlike the mainstream birth of the internet, when I was far too young to understand its potential or importance, I really wanted to dive into a technology that is still in its infancy. There are many applications for which blockchain could be used, but for the scope of this research, I wanted to discover in more detail how blockchain is affecting the financial industry and whether or not it is ready for mainstream use. Let's discuss very briefly the history behind blockchain. We can all remember the agony concerning the global financial crisis of 2008. Some of the pictures illustrate this crisis, but it is really only important to understand the period in time we are looking at for this slide. Thankfully, the world has moved forward from this crisis. So a person or persons using the name Satoshi Nakamoto published a white paper titled A Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash System. This occurred late in 2008. This provided the framework for digital currency, what we really know as Bitcoin. This document proposed to eliminate the need for intermediaries that financial transactions rely on, a trusted third party as we know it. So Bitcoin's popularity continues to experience extreme variances in expectation and use, and we can't cover in detail its volatile history in this presentation, but realize it is important to understand that it is the catalyst for blockchain technology. When we hear blockchain, it is of a critical importance to understand that it is not the same thing as Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Although blockchain is forever linked and associated with that technology, understand that blockchain is the underlying force behind Bitcoin. So what is blockchain? Blockchain is an incorruptible digital ledger of economic transactions that can be programmed to record not just financial transactions, but virtually everything of value. So how does blockchain work? For simplicity, I've added a very high-level crash course for how blockchain works. Let's imagine Dr. R wants to send Dr. J some cash for a state-of-the-art donut maker. So to purchase this, Dr. R wants to send Dr. J some money. Dr. R hits send on his device, and the block begins. The block records details of the transaction, such as time, the sender's address, the receiver's address, and the amount. This block has been shared with everyone on a decentralized network. So now, everyone, all the nodes on the network must validate and approve the transaction's authenticity. Once the network has approved the transaction, the block is added to the chain. This transaction is immutable and possesses a very unique hash that is unalterable. Once all of these things have been complete, the transaction is complete and Dr. J is happy. In regards to our digital assets, we know they are recorded on a ledger, so let's consider two. Ledgers themselves are not a new idea. However, the blockchain technology that sits beneath these digital ledgers are a progressive adaptation to them. First, a decentralized distributed ledger. This type of ledger is kept over a network of connected users. As the name suggests, it is shared over the network and everyone has access to the data stored. The affirmation of the ledger is based on a consensus of work. It is up to the nodes on the network to power the ledger. It provides transparency, reliability, and most of all, users can trust the data. Another feature of the design is that it offers cost efficiency because it eliminates the need for intermediaries. This makes it highly advantageous for banks or financial institutions to invest in the technology. Our next type will be centralized ledgers. Centralized ledgers are the traditional method of record keeping. The organization keeping the data maintains the single point of failure. They also control who sees that data. This method of keeping information can be customized to the requirements of an organization. Now, let me turn your focus on applications for how blockchain can be used in the financial industry. For this presentation, we will limit our efforts to just 4. Smart contracts. Smart contracts are not a new idea. However, their execution on the blockchain is a hot selling point for organizations and individuals. Industry professionals like Nick Szabo have mentored their evolution since 1993. The payment system. The mighty dollar. It drives some of us to do some really silly things. On the blockchain, things like cross-border payments, city-to-city or state-to-state transactions where unnecessary fees may occur will be lower for institutions like banks. They'll be able to charge their customers, which is mostly all of us, far less by eliminating intermediaries. Identity. Banking the unbanked. Here's where it gets interesting. One very attractive use is providing identity to the unbanked. According to an article published online by Business Insider in 2017, there are roughly 2 billion people who are unbanked. Let that number sink in for just a second. Another survey published in June 2017 by the FDIC stated it is estimated that 6.5% of U.S. households were unbanked. That is 8.4 million households. Now imagine if there was an immediate solution. Blockchain technology provides an alternative to confirm someone's identity, a real tangible solution. Now, while it may not be possible right this second, blockchain technology has certainly kicked down that door. Trade finance. With distributed ledger technology backed by blockchain's immutability, records, lending, and other functions of finance can operate faster and once again lower cost. Imagine buying a house and instead of waiting on banks, government, and your DNA sample to come back clean, your purchase could be made in mere hours. Think about that. We briefly covered some potential uses. It's time to address why after a decade, blockchain is not mainstream. Power, the juice. Bitcoin miners are incentivized to effectively compete for the next block. Satoshi Nakamoto's design for the blockchain becomes increasingly difficult with each new block. A new block occurs every 10 minutes. For miners to be successful, they must first verify the previous block, the list of new transactions, and a random third number. This is known as proof of work consensus. Without this, the miners just don't get paid. The electricity to operate the computational power is so immense that the investment bank and financial services company Morgan Stanley estimated that the original blockchain algorithm could eat up more energy than Argentina this year. Essentially, this is just way too expensive for any organization to operate within. Scalability. Blockchain's technology operates on a network. The more nodes on the network, the more congested the network becomes. So we can think of it in this way. When blockchain took its first steps, we could fit 1,000 transactions per second through the front door. Now, the number of transactions is a small fraction of what industry leaders like PayPal and Visa are producing. Where those industry giants are producing, say, 1,000 transactions per second, miners are only able to produce 10 per second. Compliance. It's such a tough thing. Law and order. Death and taxes are the only sure thing, right? So governments, organizations, and individuals are governed by laws that keep us safe. One of the primary inhibitors of blockchain application is governance. How will we enforce regulation on a system that regulates itself? Blockchain's potential will most assuredly disrupt how governments function economically, how they keep records, and how they even interact with other governments. Compliance is a critical component to get right. So, in conclusion, this presentation covered my theoretical research on an emerging technology. My effort was to touch on the high points of research. Blockchain technology will transform the financial industry. How soon the technology catapults to mainstream use remains to be seen. It is important that we continue to develop its uses in the financial industry, as I feel it has the greatest potential for impact globally. We must also remain hyper-vigilant to the potential for unintended consequences. Governance for blockchain technology should be warmly accepted, and collaboration will only benefit all the stakeholders. Finally, blockchain technology, like the internet of the 90s, may be seen and misunderstood, but its potential is something to get really excited about. Thank you.